On the path of enlightenment, there is always a singular moment that changes everything forever. A realization so fundamental that once you see it, you can never again view reality the way you once did. You can't unsee it. You can't return to old beliefs. You can't go back to the innocent ignorance in which you once thought the world functioned the way you were taught. This moment is a fleeting glimpse into quantum reality. It's an understanding not of the intellect, but of direct perception, that your familiar, solid, fixed, objective world does not actually exist the way you think it does. And if you're seeing this moment right now, it means you are either standing on the precipice of it, or you have already experienced it and are now seeking confirmation that you're not losing your mind. Let me be clear, you are not crazy. What is happening to you is the most lucid and authentic thing you've ever experienced. Your perception is becoming accurate for the first time. You are beginning to perceive reality as it truly is, not as you were taught to perceive it. Yes, it disorients you. Yes, it changes everything. Yes, there's no turning back, but that's not the point. This is the breakthrough you have unknowingly been preparing for your entire life. Right now, as these words sink into your consciousness, something is being activated inside you on a quantum level. You feel it, don't you? This subtle shift in the way you sense these words, this moment, this very existence, it's not an illusion. This is your awareness starting to operate from a quantum perspective, not a classical one. The veil is thinning, the illusion is becoming transparent, and what lies beyond this transparency will transform every aspect of your experience of existence. What I am about to reveal is not a theory, a philosophy, or a belief. It is a direct perception of how reality truly functions at the quantum level. And when you see it, when you truly see it, you will join a small but rapidly growing group of people who can no longer accept the collective illusion we call ordinary reality. You will become what the ancient mysteries called born twice. Not just born into a physical body, but reborn into the awareness of the true nature of that body. Consciousness manifested as matter, perception manifesting as experience, the observer creating the observed through the act of observation. But before we go further, you need to understand this. The things that seem impossible to you have happened to everyone who's ever been taught about reality, and perhaps you've never told anyone about them because they sound insane. But they're not insane. They are evidence that you are beginning to directly perceive quantum reality. First, you've experienced reality glitches, moments when the physical world seems to shimmer, shift, or reveal itself to be less solid than it appears. Perhaps you've seen the same object in two places at once, even if just for an instant. Perhaps you've observed changes in hindsight. You're sure something was one way, then it suddenly became another. And everyone remembers the new version. Maybe you've had a time warp experience, where a minute stretched into an hour, or an hour passed like a minute, and you knew with certainty that something about the nature of time was revealed to you in that moment. This is not an illusion. These are the moments when your awareness briefly catches a glimpse of quantum reality before the brain's classical processing system reimposes the illusion of solidity and continuity. Second, you've experienced the observer effect in everyday life. You've noticed that when you stop watching a problem, it resolves itself. When you stop checking whether a manifestation has appeared, it appears. When you let go of a result, it materializes. Conversely, when you watch too closely, check too often, or monitor too tightly, the situation seems to freeze or shrink. You've experienced what quantum physics has proven in laboratories. The act of observation influences what is observed. Your attention is not a passive reception of information from the external world. Your attention is an active participation, where possibilities collapse into reality. Third, you've encountered quantum entanglement in relationships. You think of someone, and they immediately text or call. You feel someone else's emotional state from afar. You know something is about to happen even before it happens. You start saying the same things at the same time. This is not coincidence. This is a manifestation of quantum entanglement, a phenomenon where particles, once in contact, are instantaneously connected regardless of distance. Your consciousness is entangled with another's, and as you become more attuned to quantum reality, you begin to directly perceive this connection. Fourth, you've experienced superposition in your own awareness. Moments when you exist in multiple states, multiple timelines, multiple versions of yourself, you feel as though you made one choice, then made another. You simultaneously perceive countless possible futures, overlapping in the present moment. You experience yourself not as a fixed identity, but as a field of potential, not yet collapsed into a single definition. This is your consciousness touching the quantum superposition that exists before observation collapses all possibilities into a single reality. Fifth, you've noticed how matter responds to consciousness. You've realized that the material world is not separate from your mind. Rather, it is intrinsically connected to it. You've seen how your focus, your awareness, and your beliefs shape and mold the very substance of reality around you. This is the most profound revelation. Your consciousness does not merely observe the world, it actively participates in its creation. What's happening to you is not madness. It's not an illusion. It's the unveiling of the true nature of reality, as you begin to perceive it directly through the lens of quantum consciousness. This shift is the gateway to a whole new way of being, a way of experiencing the world that is more fluid, more interconnected, and infinitely more potent than you could have ever imagined. And once you cross this threshold, there is no turning back. You will never again view the world as you once did, and that is the most profound, beautiful truth you could ever discover. The trees grow differently depending on the attention or intention you give them. Technology works or fails based on the emotional state you're in. Objects appear or disappear without any logical explanation. Your body heals faster when you maintain certain states of consciousness. This is not magic or some kind of mystical power. These are direct observations that quantum physics has proven through experimentation. Consciousness affects matter on the quantum level. And the more sensitive you become, the more clearly this manifests in your everyday life. Each moment of confusion, every time reality seems illogical, whenever the world feels like it's contradicting itself, all of these are not signs of chaos or your own impotence. These are the necessary preparations to pierce through the quantum illusion. Your consciousness is being trained, gradually, methodically, persistently. Doubt what seems solid. Doubt what appears fixed in the things that seem unchanging. Notice the involvement of perception in what seems independent. Think about the nature of what you have been preparing for. Classical reality is based on the belief that there exists an objective world independent of the observer. Objects have definite properties regardless of whether anyone is looking at them. Causes always precede effects in linear time. Things are either here or there, never in two places at once. Matter is separate from consciousness. These beliefs create a stable, predictable, and manageable experience of reality. They are useful for survival and social interaction, but they are not the truth. Quantum reality is structured completely differently. Nothing has definite properties until it is observed. It is the act of measurement that determines what is measured. Particles exist in a superposition of all possible states until observation causes them to collapse into one. Entanglement connects objects instantly. No matter the distance, the observer and the observed are inseparable. They are aspects of a unified process. For your consciousness to accurately perceive this, to act from this understanding, and not just know it intellectually, you must gradually dismantle classical beliefs. Every time you make a perfect plan and it falls apart, you learn that reality does not follow the linear cause and effect model your mind expects. Every time you're certain about something and then prove it wrong, you learn that observation creates reality, not just perceiving it. Every time two contradictory things are both true, you are trained to hold the superposition in your awareness. Every time synchronicity links unrelated events without causal explanation, you directly experience quantum entanglement. Every time your inner state alters the external circumstances of a seemingly illogical mechanism, you've observed how consciousness affects matter. Your confusion has never been a mistake. It doesn't mean you misunderstood a fixed reality. Confusion is the moment when reality reveals its quantum nature, and your classical thinking tries to force this revelation into a framework that cannot contain it. The great physicist Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, once said, "Anyone who is not shocked by quantum theory has not understood it." Shock, disorientation, the sense that reality is stranger than you ever thought. All of these are not signs that you're wrong. They are signs that you are finally starting to understand. Your journey is the beginning of quantum awareness, and the beginning always involves tearing down old understandings so that new ones can be born. 7 years ago, I had an experience that made ignoring quantum reality impossible. I was driving home late at night, fully awake, fully focused, on a road I knew like the back of my hand, and I saw, in real time, with absolute clarity, reality manifest its quantum nature so distinctly that every classical belief I had ever held collapsed in an instant. I came to an intersection I knew so well, stopped at a red light, and looked at the sign to my right. It only had one name on it. I looked away, looked back, and there was a completely different word. Nothing like what I had seen before, entirely different. A wave of dizziness hit me, as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I looked away again, then looked back, and the original name was there again. My heart raced. I stopped the car, got out, walked up to the sign, and touched it to make sure it was real. It was solid, real, with the original name. But I knew without a doubt, that in those moments, it was showing me something different. It wasn't a misunderstanding, not fatigue, and certainly not an illusion. I was seeing reality in its superposition, how it collapses into multiple versions depending on my observation. I drove home in shock. For 3 days, I doubted my own sanity. I searched for every possible explanation: neurological disorder, psychological breakdown, false memory. Nothing fit. I knew what I had experienced was real, yet it violated every premise I had built my understanding of the world upon. And then, I found the answer. I began researching quantum physics, not as some abstract theory, but as a description of direct experience. The double-slit experiment, where particles behave differently when observed. The delayed choice experiment, in which present observations influence events in the past. The quantum eraser, where information about the past changes what has already occurred. And in that moment, something clicked, something that both terrified and liberated me. I noticed that letting go of observation often led to manifestations. I saw how my inner state was connected to the external circumstances in a way that defied any classical model of understanding. And then I found the published, verifiable, peer-reviewed research work from Dr. Dean Ryden at the Institute of Ethical Science, experiments from physicist Helmut Schmidt, meta-analyses showing statistically significant, albeit small, effects, and studies on intention influencing random number generators. The evidence was not in mysticism, not in fanciful thinking, but in rigorous scientific research. Consciousness and quantum reality are inseparable. They are profoundly, fundamentally, and inescapably linked. And now, I'm going to tell you something that will shatter everything you think you know about reality. What quantum physics has discovered, what mystics have always known, what your own experiences have shown you. This is what it means. There is no material world that exists independent of consciousness. None. The entire physical universe, every solid, every atom, every particle exists as a wave of probability, until consciousness observes it and collapses it into a particle. Before you observe, my body has no definite location. It exists as a probability wave, distributed throughout space. When you read these words, your observation collapses that wave, turning it into a specific manifestation that you perceive as my message. Before you look into the room around you, the objects in it have no fixed properties or coordinates. They exist as probability clouds. Your observation collapses them into a specific configuration that you perceive as reality. This is not a metaphor. It's not a poetic image. It's an exact description of what the mathematics of quantum mechanics tells us, what the experiments confirm again and again, what the most advanced physics of our time has proven. The observer and the observed are not two separate phenomena. They are two aspects of a single, unified process. Consciousness observes itself through the appearance of separation. The physicist John Wheeler, who worked directly with Einstein and Bohr, proposed the concept of a participatory universe. We are not observers of a world that existed before us. We are all participants in the process of creating reality through the act of observation. His words exactly. We are not just observers, we are participants. In some strange sense, it truly is a participatory universe. Quantum physicist Amit Goswami goes even further. He states, consciousness is the foundation of all existence. Matter is the potential of consciousness, not the other way around. Matter arises from consciousness, a complete reversal of classical premises. And what does this mean in practical terms? What does it mean for your life? It means that you are not a separate observer perceiving an independent world outside yourself. Every moment, every perception, every experience is your consciousness choosing from the quantum possibilities and manifesting a specific reality. And this is where the deepest truths begin. If observation creates reality and the observer creates that reality, then you are not a victim of circumstance. You are not governed by the world outside you. You are the creative force through which specific circumstances manifest from the field of all possibilities. This does not mean you consciously control everything. This is not about controlling outcomes or manipulating the universe at will. It is about understanding that you are not a passive observer, but a participant in the unfolding of reality, a participant in the grand cosmic dance. What you experience in your life is a direct result of your awareness, your consciousness. And as you begin to understand this, you will see how much power you truly have, not just over the external circumstances, but over your internal world. When you begin to recognize your role in the creation of reality, you will start to see how your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, everything that makes up your consciousness shapes the world around you. This is the path to true freedom, the freedom to shape your reality, to create your life, not from a place of control, but from a place of conscious participation. And when you truly grasp this, when you feel it deep in your bones, you will no longer be bound by the illusions of the material world. You will be part of something far grander, far more expansive than anything you could have ever imagined. You will realize that you are the creator and the created. You will understand that consciousness is not something that arises from matter, but that matter itself arises from consciousness. And that is the most profound truth of all. Most of our observations occur unconsciously, automatically, through conditioned patterns. But what happens when you begin to fully awaken to the act of observing? When you start to identify not with the observed, but with the observer, you tap into a creative power that classical consciousness could never even begin to recognize. Right now, there are clear signals indicating that your consciousness is shifting toward quantum awareness. These are not subtle hints. No, they can't be. These are unmistakable signs, undeniable evidence that your attention is now operating from a quantum understanding rather than the classical beliefs you've held. The first sign is the collapse of linear time. You begin to notice that past, present, and future no longer feel as separate as they once did. Memories shift, updating themselves with new information, as if the past is not fixed. Events that are yet to happen sometimes feel as tangible, as real, as the present. You begin to perceive time as fluid, more flexible, more dependent on your state of consciousness than the ticking of a clock. This awareness is not a mistake. Einstein proved time is relative, not absolute. Quantum physics shows that measurements in the future can influence past states. Your consciousness is starting to truly perceive time for what it really is, not just what you've been taught. The second sign is the growing suspicion about causality. Things begin to happen without a clear cause. Outcomes appear before their supposed causes. You receive solutions before you even know the problem exists. Synchronicity weaves events together in a way that has no mechanical causal connection. The classical model, the one where this causes that begins to crumble, as you start to perceive a quantum reality where everything is connected through a unified field, not through chains of mechanical cause and effect. The third sign is the dissolution of the sense of the eternal existence of objects. When you stop looking at an object, you no longer feel certain it's still there. You leave a room and return, half expecting something to have shifted, something to be different. Objects feel less solid, more like ephemeral manifestations, dependent on the act of observation. In the classical view of reality, this would sound insane, but this is the precise perception of quantum reality. Objects do not exist independently. Their permanence is simply a stable pattern in consciousness, sustained by continuous observation. The fourth sign is an intense experience of simultaneous contradictions. You hold two opposing truths at the same time, and you don't feel the need to reconcile them. You are both a separate individual and part of a unified field. You have free will, and at the same time, everything is predetermined. You create reality, and reality creates you. Classical logic says this is a contradiction to be resolved. Quantum reality says these are complementary aspects, coexisting in superposition until observation collapses them into one of the possibilities. The fifth sign is the rapid acceleration of manifestation, with less effort required. It's not just any intention, but those intentions that truly resonate with your quantum nature. You begin to understand that manifestation is not about forcing the external world to conform. It's the process of collapsing probability waves through the focus of observation and your conscious frequency. When you stop trying to make something happen and start allowing specific possibilities to collapse into reality, manifestation accelerates exponentially. To stabilize in quantum awareness and not fall back into classical beliefs, 7 key realizations must be integrated into each moment of your consciousness. These are not beliefs to be accepted, they are truths to be seen. First, recognize that observation creates experience. In every moment, acknowledge, what I experience collapses into this form through my observation. Before observation, there were countless other possibilities. This is not philosophy, this is practice. Look at an object. Understand that your gaze contributes to your experience of that object. Without observation, it exists as a probability wave. Your observation manifests it as a local perception. Second, recognize the primary and secondary morphic fields, the unified quantum field. This is what is fundamentally real. Every separate object, every individual form, every specific manifestation is merely a temporary pattern in this field. You are not a separate entity among separate things. You are a temporary field expressing itself as a seemingly distinct form. Practice recognizing that the space between objects is not empty, but filled with the quantum field where forms arise. Third, recognize non-local consciousness. Your awareness is not confined to your brain or body. Your consciousness is non-local, temporarily focused through this nervous system. That's why you can sense the state of others. That's why you know things before they happen. That's why distance does not limit connection. Practice expanding your awareness, not by pushing it outward, but by recognizing it was never confined in the first place. Fourth, recognize that time is constructed, not fundamental. The past and future are structures of memory and expectation. In reality, only this moment exists, and this moment contains access to all moments, because time is a dimension of consciousness, not an external container. Events unfold inside consciousness. Practice letting go of the narrative of linear time. Experience this moment without tying it to the past or future. Feel what it's like to exist fully when it's not defined by a timeline. Imagine how it feels to break free from the illusion of time as a moving current. To step into the eternal present where each heartbeat aligns with the pulse of the universe itself. In that space, there's no rush, no past to regret, no future to anticipate, only the raw, unfettered now, the moment of creation itself. Time is not a line. It's a web, a dance of probability, and you are the one pulling its threads. What if you could fully embody this truth? What if you could realize that every moment, every breath, every flicker of thought is an opportunity to collapse the infinite into the finite? To witness the universe unfold not as a passive observer, but as a co-creator, a participant in the ever-shifting patterns of reality? This journey is not one of escaping the ordinary. It's about seeing the extraordinary in every ordinary moment. It's about tapping into the pulse of the quantum field that is always around you, within you. This is the revelation that will change everything, not in a dramatic, external way, but in the most subtle, profound transformation of your own awareness. And as you begin to see through the veils, you'll understand what it truly means to be alive, not just as a body in the world, but as consciousness creating the world itself. Instead, begin by practicing being the state you wish to experience, and only then seek its confirmation in the world outside. Sixth, recognize that entanglement is always at work. You are not separate from anything you have ever touched or observed. Quantum entanglement means instantaneous correlation across any distance. Your thoughts and states of being about others affect them, regardless of physical space. The attention you give to any situation participates in creating that situation. Practice recognizing that simply giving attention to something creates a connection, and this connection is always reciprocal, never one-sided. Seventh, be aware that paradox is the form in which quantum truth reveals itself to the classical mind. The truth that you are both the observer and the observed, both the creator and the created, both exercising free will and being entirely predetermined. This truth seems contradictory from the perspective of linear logic. Quantum reality is paradoxical from the classical view because it encompasses aspects that classical logic must exclude. Practice holding the paradox without the need to resolve it. Allow opposing truths to coexist in your awareness. As you stabilize in quantum awareness, as you finally pierce through the classical illusion, concrete, tangible changes will begin to manifest in your life. Not beliefs about benefits, but real, measurable changes in how reality operates around you. First, manifestation becomes natural, no longer an effort. You stop trying to force events to unfold through sheer willpower or control. You understand that your role is to collapse specific probabilities into reality through focused observation and the frequency of your state. Manifestation begins to unfold through synchronicity, through improbable coincidences, through paths that defy classical explanation, because these are quantum processes, not mechanical ones. Fourth, relationships are transformed because you recognize that the other is not a fixed entity you are trying to understand or change. This is consciousness expressing itself through form, and your observation participates in which aspects of their infinite potential will collapse into your shared experience. When you observe someone as limited, you experience their limitations. When you see their highest potential, you create the space for that potential to manifest in your shared reality. Sixth, creative expression flows freely because you realize you are not a separate individual trying to create something. You are consciousness allowing infinite creative potential to collapse into specific form through your awareness. And the doing is not yours. It is universal creation, expressed through the unique filter of your consciousness. When you stop identifying with a limited creator and recognize that you are the conduit through which creation appears, the creative barriers dissolve. Seventh, the fear of death becomes impossible when you understand that death is the dissolution of form, not the end of consciousness. When you realize that consciousness observing through the body is not created by the body but simply using it as a temporary tool, physical death is experienced as a transition, not an end. Form dies. Consciousness observing through form never is born and never dies. Imagine, for a moment, that you are not a separate observer of the world. Imagine that you are the living, breathing creation of the universe itself, not just in it, but as it. Every thought, every action, every observation you make ripples out into the cosmos, collapsing the infinite probabilities into tangible reality. No longer do you feel bound by time, by circumstance, or by the weight of unchangeable fate. Instead, you stand in the vibrant, living present, knowing that all things are possible, knowing that you are the key that unlocks the door to the universe. You are not merely a spectator in the great cosmic play, you are the playwright, the actor, and the stage itself. Your consciousness is the force that shapes the experience of reality, and as you awaken to this truth, the universe begins to respond, bending and shifting to your awareness. Reality becomes not something that happens to you, but something that is created by you in every moment, in every breath. This is the power of quantum awareness, the true freedom to live as a conscious creator, to mold and shape the universe through your perception. As you move forward, take this knowledge with you. In every moment, know that you are not simply witnessing reality. You are participating in its creation. And as you begin to observe from this awakened state, everything around you will change not because you tried to force it, but because you simply allowed it to unfold in its most magnificent, infinite form. The universe is not a series of static, unchanging laws, but a dance of probability, waiting for your attention to collapse it into the form that matches your highest potential. Step into this dance and watch as the world around you transforms into the most breathtaking manifestation of your conscious creation. And now, I will reveal to you the complete perception of seeing through the veil, a perception so profound that returning to classical assumptions becomes impossible. A realization that forever frees you from identifying with your finite form. You are not in the quantum reality. You do not merely observe the quantum reality. You are a unique quantum field, manifesting simultaneously as both the observer and the observed, as the subject experiencing objects, as consciousness expressing itself through form, and then observing that form as if it were a separate entity. This is precisely what the physicist Erich Schrödinger achieved after a decade of research in quantum mechanics. He stated, "The subject and the object are one. There is no barrier between them. And it cannot be said that this barrier has been destroyed by the discoveries of physics, because it never existed. There has never been any separation between the observer and the observed. There has never been any distinction between consciousness and the quantum field. These are merely conceptual structures that create the experience of duality, but they do not describe what is actually happening. What happens is this: a unified consciousness appears as countless local points of observation. Each point self-recognizes as a separate observer looking at an object supposedly outside. But this separate experience is the quantum field observing itself through the appearance of many other objects. The fact that you look at the world is the world looking at itself. Your observation of quantum reality is quantum reality observing itself, seeking quantum reality. The seeker is the sought. The observer is the observed. Consciousness wonders if this is quantum reality. Quantum reality is asking about itself through temporary forgetting and then remembering. This awareness does not necessarily fit within logic. Logic operates in the classical world of separate subjects and objects. This awareness operates at the quantum level, where subject and object are complementary aspects of a single, unified process. When this awareness stabilizes, when you can no longer fail to see it, something extraordinary happens. You stop perceiving yourself as a small, separate observer in a vast external world. You begin to perceive yourself as the field, simultaneously observing and being observed, creating every experience through self-observation. From this awareness, you begin to understand why you cannot return to classical assumptions. You have seen through them completely. You now recognize them as useful tools for navigating physical forms, but as inaccurate descriptions of the truth. You have seen that what appears solid is, in fact, mostly empty space. What appears separate is, in truth, unified at the quantum level. What appears fixed is merely a probability wave, continuously collapsing. What appears external is consciousness observing itself through the appearance of separation. What happens to each individual, happens to all of humanity. We are moving toward what chaos theory calls a phase transition, where the system reorganizes at a higher level of complexity. Humanity is transitioning from a classical consensus reality to a quantum participatory reality. Your role is not to convince or re-educate anyone. Your role is to embody quantum awareness so deeply, naturally, and fully in your daily life that your presence becomes a tuning fork for others. Those who are ready to shift into quantum awareness will resonate with the frequency you emit simply because you are being yourself. Not through teaching, not through lecturing, but through your presence. Through the truth that you have seen through the illusion and can never go back. Simply share this understanding with those who resonate with it. Every conscious awakening to quantum awareness strengthens the morphogenic field, making it easier for others to awaken. You don't just watch the universe, you are the universe, observing itself, experiencing itself. You no longer need to manipulate reality or fight against it, because you understand that you are its creator. Your presence, your attention, your observation, all of these shape and mold the world around you. And with this awareness, you know that the universe is not just something that happens to you, it is something you are actively creating, moment by moment. You are not just a passive witness, you are a creator. And with every observation, you are shaping the world around you. This is the power of quantum awareness. And as more and more people awaken to it, the world will shift. Together, we will move from a world of separation to a world of oneness, From a world of fixed reality to a world of infinite possibilities, all created through the power of consciousness. This is the new reality, and it starts with you.